finally bring ourselves on to, are the Brooklyn Nets going to be the worst team in the Atlantic Division? Not the Atlantic, sorry, the entire league, rather.
I was like, I think the NBA, for their sake, I hope they are.
Yeah.
I'm happy for Nets fans. I know they've wanted this for a while. I'm happy that Joe Tsai let Sean Marks cook and trade Mikal Bridges at the absolute peak of his value. I mean, look, to get 5 first-round picks for the 48th best player in the NBA, like a guy that is certainly going to help the Knicks, but also it was completely necessary from where the Nets are at. Like, they don't have their own draft picks. They were able to actually get some of their own draft picks back and swap them out for Phoenix picks from the Rockets, which I actually think makes sense for both teams, weirdly. Like,
100%.
The Rockets don't need any more young guys, especially after they got Reed Shepherd with that one of those Nets picks. And now the Nets can control their own destiny these next few years a little bit easier. The Phoenix picks make more sense if they want to try to make a play for for Devin Booker, if you're the Rockets, to give a little bit more destiny back in the hands of the Suns. And the Nets, I mean, look, what's funny is that I think what could happen is what we just talked about with the Raptors. I hope that they're bad enough. I think this is going to be similar to like a worse version of what happened with the Utah Jazz 2 years ago, where like, oh no, maybe they win too many games and they have to trade some of these guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton earlier than they hope, just because I think that they might have a little bit more talent than you want to be the worst team in the NBA. Like, I think that they will be still, just by factor of they're willing to lean into the tank. They're willing to take like a quote unquote developmental year and let Cam Thomas drive them all the way to the bottom of the league. I think there is a world where like they accidentally win too much too early and they have to make some of those moves. But from a perspective of, like you said, like the Raptors have way more creation. The Nets basically have a team that has a bunch of guys that would be better on other teams. In a scaled down role. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nicholas Claxton. If you put them in different roles on other teams, we've seen them contribute at high levels. That's not going to happen on this Nets team. Like, this Nets team is still very obviously lacking that engine, lacking that superstar talent, and they're going to be more competitive. I don't think they're going to be getting destroyed every single night, because even having just a few of those guys is going to help them maybe irk out some wins or be competitive in losses in a way that we're not used to from tanking teams. But the league talent is just so much better now that, like, I think this is like a 15 to 20 win team next year.
Yeah, you can just skew it in so many ways as well. Like, you could genuinely look at this year and you could say, let's see exactly what Nick Claxton is on ball. We have him signed for 4 years. Let's like give him the ball and have him be our handoff hub. And that's not going to go great. Obviously, the Cam Thomas approximation of what Jordan Poole did last year is something that's on the cards. I think that he's a better player than Jordan Poole. He's definitely a better off-ball shooter, at least right now as well. I had a couple of questions with regards to the Nets. My questions were, will they win over 12 games? You said between 15 and 20. Can Cam Thomas be a long-term piece? I think we're going to park that for today. The only two questions I like are, would you entertain offers for Claxton? And who are your favorite second draft guys around the league for the Nets? Because they seem to me to be the one team in that rebuilding stage where usually teams very early on, they get like, oh, if everything pans out, this will be our guard, this will be our wing, this will be our big. The Nets are still a blank canvas. So if they wanted to go and look at Jaden Ivey, for example, if they wanted to push in for Jonathan Kuminga, they're one of the teams that actually has the long-term salary flexibility, the picks, and the usage to actually offer them out without squeezing out any of their other young guys.
So yeah, now that I think about it, I think you said 12 games. I think they'll win probably closer to 15. Probably. Like, now that I think about, like, they don't want to win.
Yeah.
And then you think about the league talent, like just league-wide, what we're looking at, like, even the Pistons and the Wizards last year probably irked out around, I think they both won 14 to 16 games, 17 games. And the Pistons wanted to win. They didn't want to lose. like the Nets have more ability to pull plugs here. I would definitely entertain offers for Nick Claxton 100%. I think that he could be someone that could be like a prized trade chip at the deadline, if anything. I think his contract is like fine. Like, I don't think it's like positive value or negative value, really. Like, I think it's just like about what he is worth. I think he got like a 4-year, $100 million deal. Like, good player. I think would be much better on other. He's never been in a scenario where he's really like, he didn't even play that much when they had Harden, which was really annoying. Like, I wish we had gotten to see Nick Claxton when they had those 3 guys and like they all could have played together. But the first year they were all in on playing vets, and then the second year it was a disaster. And I think I would like to see him play. Like, I would love to see him in Atlanta, for example. Like, what does he look like in the Clint Capella spot? Or like, what does he look like if he's playing instead of a Kongwu on that team? Just as like a play finisher that can, like you said, like can occasionally handle the ball. That's really good defensively. That is like a versatile player on both ends of the court. And I would like to see what he looks like this year. But in terms of second draft guys, Ivy's a great one. Although I do think that Ivy, like, we've already kind of seen him in a bad context, and like he's gotten a lot of chances. Like, it's not like he's suffered from a lack of opportunity in Detroit. I think that Detroit has given a lot of guys opportunity.
I think he did last year. I think that if you look at his first year towards the end of it, again, Mickey Mouse March and everything, but the 3-point percentage was going up, the turnovers were going down slightly, the assists were going up as well, to the point where I think he was averaging something like 17, 5 and 5, 17, 5 and 6 on 38% from 3. And that was without Cade in the lineup. But last year was just insane, where it was, it was Killian Hayes starting in front of him, for God's sake.
Well, he could go to the Nets and maybe it happens again. Killian Hayes is on the Nets.
Schroeder.
No, Killian Hayes is literally on the Nets.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it is a non-guaranteed contract, but I just honestly, like, that's the kind of move that, like, who cares? Like, if you're a tanking team, you know that he can help you tank, and like maybe there is a world where Killian Hayes isn't as bad as he showed in Detroit, and you got him for free for nothing, whatever, who cares? But I forgot they had Schroeder too. Like, the league is, like you said, it definitely needs expansion. That, like, all of these guys are, like, 4 years ago would have been like capable rotation players, and now they're
4 years ago, Dennis Schroeder was getting offered $88 million.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And now he's like a $10 million a year guy that will probably get like $5 million after this season.
Yeah.
So long story short, like, I think that the Nets are in a position where they probably can take a few swings. I think Kuminga would just be a little bit rich for their blood just because they have to pay him right away. But I don't know. Like, I haven't really thought about second draft guy. Is there anyone that comes to mind for you? Ivy's a great one. I think that's a really good one.
I would say anyone from Detroit, because it looks to me like, let's say, a new coach is through the door with JB Bickerstaff. They ran 2 guard lineups in Cleveland where it was Garland and Mitchell. Maybe they get something cooking with Ivy and Cade, and he becomes a little bit more valuable. But then one of Ron Holland, Alsar Thompson, or Jalen Duren is not going to be long for that team, because they are players that you would ideally like to start for you long term, and none of the 3 can shoot right now. So Duren could be a really interesting player if they were to move on from Claxton. Again, it's probably a little bit more of what we've seen anyway. Alsar could maybe be interesting. I like Kuminga from the point of view of, like, you can just go out there and grab him. You have the excess first round picks, but I think that you're right when you say if he's to stay in Brooklyn, they're probably paying him $35 million a year, which is too rich.
Yeah, and the idea behind second draft guys is usually, like, you don't want to give up real value for them. Like, it's like, I think the mistake that Detroit made was that they kept making these trades where, like, yeah, we'll trade for James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley, but, like, they were giving up real stuff to do it. And then also, like, and then they gave Bagley the contract. Like, I think with second draft guys, you should always just be looking to buy, like, as low as possible without giving up, like, real assets. And then if they work out, great. And if they don't, then you can move on. Like, and I think those are the kind of moves, like, guys that should just be, like, throw into trades, essentially. I didn't even like what the Bulls did with Caruso and Giddey. Like, I think that, like, giving up Caruso, who's like a real valuable, good NBA player, for Giddey, who's just like a question mark. Like I don't even like those kind of trades. Like I would be looking to buy low on guys. I know I just made fun of the Raptors, but like sure, why not take a swing on like Oshai Abaji and Davion Mitchell and these guys who like aren't good NBA players, but like they basically gave up nothing to get them.
So I just want to come in for a second because this is a whole podcast in itself. It has kind of become impossible for these slightly more valuable than nothing guys to ever get a move in the NBA anymore because the teams that would be willing to give them playing time don't want to give up any future draft picks. Exactly. And the teams that like the other teams don't really have a position in the roster to where it makes sense to go and trade for them. So one of the other guys I've got is Ben Mathurin that could maybe be interesting.
That's a great one.
Yeah, he'd be quite fun just because it looks as though he's maybe getting squeezed out there. Like TJ McConnell signs that extension. Nemhard signs an extension this year as well. And I think more than ever, it's just the rookie scale contract. It just seems to get shorter and shorter for some reason. Like teams will have to make a decision on these guys that have 2 years left because it's like, well, then everyone's going to know it's a James Wiseman situation. We're not paying them. We're not getting a first back. We're only getting seconds at that point. So he could be fun because
he also just doesn't fit with what the Pacers want to do at all.
He doesn't.
Like that. That's the thing. Is like he's kind of in that like Kelly Oubre zone where it's like the idea of him sure is great, but like, are you really gonna soak up minutes and give him the ball when like you have Nemhard and Halliburton and Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam and guys that like right now are going to affect the game. And then even like long term, like I know Jarris Walker didn't really play for them, but like it seems like they're pretty high on him. Yep. And like where does Mathurin really fit into that equation? Although the Pacers have just kind of time and time again just like paid their guys. Like they're just like, sure, like we'll give you money. Like, yeah, we don't care. Like Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell and I think that the Pacers are more just about competing than they are about contending. And I think that perspective, they might be willing to wait on Mathurin. But like, if the Nets want to give you Cam Johnson and then you offer Mathurin and like Cam Johnson's a better NBA player, or even like maybe a Dorian Finney-Smith for Ben Mathurin type thing, where like they just get another wing who can defend and make open threes, and you get the swing on Mathurin. I think that might be more valuable than getting like second round picks.
And the thing about the Pacers as well is because they owe that 26 first to the Raptors and they're a small market team.
Yeah,
they're not one of these teams that wants to go and trade a first in 28. 2030, sure. That kind of thing as well. So that potentially makes a little bit more sense.
Mathurin for DFS is interesting. I don't know if they can get up to Cam Johnson's salary as well.
They can't, because I don't think you can move Obi Toppin, who would be like the only other movable guy. Final two guys, the like absolute bargain bucket swing could be Jordan Hawkins this year, because it doesn't look as though he could potentially get rotation minutes. And
I hated that pick from the jump. I don't understand, like, whatever.
Yeah, it's a movement shooting around Zion thing, isn't it? But if he doesn't develop,
I'm also just so against. That's the thing. I'm so against drafting those kind of players near the lottery. Like I
the other day, weren't you?
I don't think it ever works out. Like
you can get them the second time round.
I've basically always said this.
Yeah, Kobe Buffkin, the other guy. If Atlanta chooses to keep Bogdanovic and he sort of sees the lane clogged in terms of playing time, he's a guy that's way too good for the G League and not going to get the minutes in Atlanta. But Trill, I think that is a podcast, buddy. Have you got anything more to say about the Atlantic Division on the whole?
No, I am good. I think I've gotten it all out of my system. I'm looking forward to this upcoming season. Thank you for having me once again. It's always fun to come on here and just yap it up. But
we yapped. We really yapped.
We
did an hour on the 76ers and we did an hour on the other four teams. But I think that was good. I really enjoyed it, man. I love having you on. Continue to pester you throughout the regular season. Guys, if for some reason you know the Drop Step podcast and you don't know the YouKnowBall podcast, something's a little bit wrong with your algorithm. They should be popping up before I do, but make sure to go and check out Trill. Make sure to go and check out the YouTube channel as well, which has been doing numbers over the off season. TikTok as well, Trill. Are we going to push for TikTok?
The Zoomers love it. I don't know. I'm not like a big TikTok guy myself, but apparently they love Bill Simmons. So
I wonder what the dichotomy is between people that will listen 2 hours about the Atlantic and then people that will go and look for their NBA content on TikTok.
follow us on YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube. All the links are going to be down below, guys. That is another episode of the Drop Step Podcast. I do hope you enjoyed. Go and check out Trill's content. He's one of the very best out there. I'm very thankful that you decided to come on my podcast. So thank you. Tune back in next week. Cheers.
Thanks, Jack. Have a good one.